A bill that will impact all of us is headed to the governor's desk. Today, the Senate approved our state's budget. It includes cuts to education and government and gives tax breaks to businesses and phases in a tax on pensions.
Yeah, we're committed to covering these big developments in Lansing, and tonight we have team coverage. 24-Hour News 8's Tony Talivia in studio tonight, learning of at least one business that will be hiring because of the tax cuts.
Tony? First, we want to head to Lansing, though, and 24-Hour News 8 political reporter Rick Albin with the latest on what's going on at the Capitol. Rick?
The House and the Senate made short work of getting these final budgets passed out today. This is well in advance of the September 30th deadline, as we've talked about a number of times. But just because it's done early doesn't mean that there has been any closing in the gap, that philosophical gap between Republicans and Democrats.
The conference report on House Bill 4325 has immediate effect.
Well in advance of the September 30th deadline, and even before the governor's self-imposed deadline, the legislature dealt with the budget. But just because it's done doesn't mean everybody's happy.
We have railroaded this budget through to adhere to the governor's arbitrary deadline and to the detriment of a majority of Michigan residents.
Democrats complain that the new tax code gives business a tax break and takes away from schools.
I think particularly on the education side, we're really taking a dangerous course by gutting funding for public education at a time when we actually have a surplus in the school aid fund. So I'm concerned that, this is not going to be good for job creation. In fact, the governor said that he can't guarantee that this proposal will create one job.
So yes, funding for education will be slightly reduced from what we are currently spending. But still, this reduction is significantly less than almost every other area of state government.
But Republicans say it's about right-sizing government, and they believe that this is part of the reinvention of the state.
This is about changing Michigan's culture from being a negative, divisive culture where people would fight and nothing would get done. It was paralysis, to a success story, to say, even if we have differences, here are common grounds that we can work together on, and not just work on, but achieve results on.
Now, the governor says that those cuts to education are about 2% for K through 12. For higher ed, for example, that cuts about 15%. Now, just because the budget's done, at least in the legislature, doesn't mean it's final. The governor will have to sign off. He could use his line item veto, although we're not sure he will. And there are a number of enabling bills that will have to be passed to make this all go into effect. And there's a lot more work to do. Reforms in education and elsewhere, and a new bridge in Detroit will be the next things on the agenda for this legislature that is taking on a lot very early on. Live in Lansing, Rick Albin, 24-Hour News.